Domo, what is up everybody? This is official Jujutsu Kaisen translator Steady, always at the ready. Welcome back to the Manga Lounge, Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 97. So a certainly action-packed chapter, and we get a big reveal about Awasaka's powers. If you saw my kind of Awasaka power theories video that I put up, I was pretty close. Definitely wasn't on the nail, but I think I caught a couple of details that you might have missed. So if you want to check that out after reading this chapter 2, you can either you can call me out on my on my mistakes, or you can say, hey, you were pretty close as well, whichever one you want to do. But we got a lot to cover today, so let's get right into it. Obviously, hope you got your drinks with you for the lounge. Got some music going on, I hope. But of course, as always, I invite you guys to kind of do your little comments. Of course, I see some familiar faces every week, and I really do appreciate you guys putting in your 2 cents. It really kind of makes it worthwhile. And I definitely like to hear the kind of different aspects, different opinions on what's going on. Alright, so of course we left off with the whole Toji Zenin in chapter 95, the reveal that he's back. In that chapter, they kind of referenced to the grandma and the grandchild were like, oh, could it be? And sure enough, it's the fact that they both, Ino and Granny Ogami, use this kind of seance power. So apparently seances are kind of a thing in the Jujutsu world, and actually summoning, which could lead to a lot more down the road. It seems like for Ino, his power more specifically deals with kind of beasts. And for Granny Ogami, it's actually like a necromancer for people. But who knows, maybe this could spell a lot of trouble for someone who has really mastered this technique down the road to summon, well, obviously someone very dangerous like Toji, but you know, there's always kind of these little references to past sorcerers who are kind of almost like semi-deities, right? Historical figures. So maybe we'll be seeing a lot of that down the road, which would be really cool if you ask me. I'm just kind of introducing these kind of historical figures or like super summons, like, and if you're a fan of Final Fantasy like I am, then that definitely kind of tickles your fancy, so to speak. But as of this point right here, we know that it's Toji's physical ability, kind of based on his speed and just kind of the raw power and stuff. But definitely it seems that the grandchild is perhaps still in control. So whatever Granny Ogami did, it would seem that it is definitely the grandchild, but with the physical ability of Toji, because he's also smart enough to see the mask, right? And he just snatches it right from him. That kind of snatching scene almost kind of reminds me of My Hero Academia. What do you call it, at the school event where they're doing the Kibasen? Then you have that scene where Ida, you know, does his Recipro burst and then snatches that. It's almost kind of reminds me of that, snatching the mask off. But it looks like Ino was going to use Ryu, Dragon, number 4. So number 3 is Kirin, so it seems. And I definitely have my theories on that, so I might put together a kind of Ino ability video, or we'll see. But this panel right here with the boom right to the face, I mean, Akutami Sensei really has a knack for, and we see later on with Awasaka getting, you know, mama said knock you out kind of deal going on. It kind of reminds me of, if you've read volume 0, Geto getting hit in the face by Yuta as well. So Akutami Sensei definitely has kind of a affinity for this getting punched in the face drawing. Hopefully we'll see more of it, but maybe not the good guys. You know, it looks like he broke a tooth there as well. But yeah, he's not looking too hot. Looks like, you know, really, you know, Toji is not to be messed with. So we'll see. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that he's okay, but something tells me that, yeah, we're going to have Yuji and Fushiguro kind of come in for the rescue as soon as they take care of Awasaka here. And all these bunnies everywhere. And then we have Max Elephant. Remember what we saw this last time with Fushiguro versus Norito Shikamo at the Goodwill event. That time it was Max Elephant with the water, but it seems like you can use it just as a, you know, Looney Tunes anvil kind of deal going on here. And I love the sound effect, this dogo. It says, we translated it as grwam. But it has that kind of, it just looks heavy, you know, so good on Akutami Sensei for just making it that effects right there. And then this double page going on right here with Yuji throwing a car. I was like, what? He can throw cars now? I mean, obviously it's not just physical human strength, right? He's somehow learned to kind of manipulate his cursed energy to a certain degree as well. Or maybe he just really does. Obviously, when it comes to Yuji, there's some sort of kind of secret probably, right? Even when the very early stages when he was talking to the grandpa, kind of alluded to the fact that he's not just a regular, like he's human maybe, but he's got some sort of background, like his parents or something, so maybe he's kind of demi-human, which would be pretty cool. I mean, and very much in line with Shonen Jump lore, you know. Bleach obviously is a famous one, although I love Bleach, but if you ask me, they kind of took it one step too far. Bleach spoilers with the whole like Quincy thing, and it was too much if you ask me. But hopefully they'll kind of, I'm sure there's going to be kind of like latent powers and kind of background unexplained with Yuji, but hopefully they don't take it too far, right? Because I really like the kind of realistic nature of his character, in terms of how he applies his lack of curse technique, so to speak. And obviously down the line we'll probably see him doing Sukuna's kind of poison manipulation maybe, or kind of poison resistance. We'll see. But then kind of the big reveal right here with Awasaka and his curse technique as inverse. So in Japanese, it's called Abe Kobe, which pretty much translates into inverse. Kind of Abe Kobe is kind of the concept of flipping something or the opposite, inverse. So a very cool, very interesting power. I don't know if I've really seen something like this before. If you can think of something that kind of reminds you of, or you've seen it in other manga or anime before, let me know in the comments. Or if you don't want to, you don't have to let me know in the comments. You can just sit back and do this thing saying, yeah, I know, you're wrong, Steady. You don't have to comment if you don't want to. So, I mean, it kind of does fall in line with what I had in my theories video for Awasaka, the fact that his face is inversed, right? So surely Akutami Sensei doesn't address it with the character, doesn't say like, oh, his face is inversed, but I think it was kind of a secret, a hidden message that was kind of there in front of us all along, that his power had something to do with kind of opposites or flipping things upside down with his face. So I thought that was pretty cool. So on page 14 here, there is a lot of explanation and maybe some things that are as clear, not as clear as other things. So hopefully I can, I'm going to kind of go through each thing here and hopefully clear up a couple of things. So when Fushiguro mentions that my attack that was forced off kilter was more effective than yours, there was that one panel, I think it was in chapter 90, the previous chapter if I'm not mistaken, where he's like, man, this is a pain in the butt. It might have been chapter 95. Anyways, where he was like, oh, this is more of a pain to fight with Yuji because he just kind of gets me off my rhythm and stuff. But then there is that kind of one panel where he lands a shot and seems to be pretty effective, but that was that was at the expense of kind of being thrown off balance by Yuji. So that did have some significance. I thought it was more to kind of explain Yuji's kind of just lack of logic and lack of strategies, just full power. But it was meant to be an allusion to the fact that he got a good shot in, but we didn't really know it at the time. But then I really like this where he says, did you notice that he's not immediately countering as he gets surrounded by rapid escape? So it's the fact that Awasaka is very much on the defense, right? He's a counter puncher, basically, like in boxing. You know, he's kind of like the Floyd Mayweather, right? He's not there to go full Mike Tyson. He's there to see the opportunity, and that's why he's got that knife. So really cool strategy. And Fushiguro noticed the fact that he's not the one to initiate the attack. He's always there to kind of be receiving and counter attacking. And so then obviously that definitely does beg the question, well, like Yuji says, and I love this, it's a very good manga technique, very well written, how Akutami, you know, we in this story are kind of in Yuji's position, right? And obviously that's what makes Yuji such an interesting character as well, is the fact that we can relate to him. We're kind of thrusted in this world where it's very unfamiliar, but we're kind of learning along the way. Kind of like if you think about Harry Potter, for example, you know, it's this guy who doesn't know what this world of, you know, witches and wizardry and all that, but, you know, he's kind of thrusted in there. That's why Harry Potter is such a compelling character, because we can kind of almost see the world through his eyes, right? So very much so the same thing with Yuji. And so he's like, although that's a little grandiose for just this one panel, but interesting note nonetheless. You know, Yuji's here like, well, does that mean that we can just dink on his forehead and he'll blast off? Which definitely the reader, most people will ask the same thing, right? Like, well, if weak is strong, then can't you just kind of give him a little tap and it'll be really effective? But Fushiguro's like, no, there has to be a minimum and a maximum, right? And not only that, Awasaka can kind of seem to, you know, conveniently turn it on and off depending on if he sees a weak punch coming in, he'll just turn it off and then it's just a weak punch. But then he also reinforces this with cursed energy manipulation, right? The concept that you can kind of reinforce defense by using cursed energy almost as a barrier. But then this kind of goes on to explain the fact that, oh, well, it's really only has to do with kind of physical attacks. That's why really kind of anomalies like Gojo, who can kind of manipulate space and time, Awasaka's not effective against him. And also the fact that when Fushiguro here says on page 15, it says he's probably also at a disadvantage against complicated techniques too, meaning things that are just kind of a little bit more on the surreal side, not just physical attacks, right? Kind of makes you wonder how his chances would be against like Nanami, for example, who just can kind of force that point of weakness. Even if it's a strong strike, Nanami's power is to force a weak point, right? So perhaps he would be ineffective against Nanami as well. But that doesn't really matter because we know how the chapter ends. Anyways, so Yuji's like, okay, then we have to hit at the same time, right? One weaker and one really strong, so he can't switch, is what is kind of going on here. But then Fushiguro's also quick to say like, yeah, but we can't let him figure it out, because if he does, then he's going to kind of, obviously Awasaka's very familiar with his own power, so he probably has countermeasures as well, right? So as soon as Awasaka realizes that Fushiguro and Yuji, Fushidori, I have to get used to saying that Fushidori have kind of figured it out, he's going to maybe A, just run away, or B, kind of figure out a different countermeasure for it, to figure out a way to kind of split them up or something like that, right? But you know, then they use the kind of the toad hit right here to just kind of get him off balance, and then all at once right here. I love these panels where you can just see Yuji and, you know, Fushiguro just kind of going at it and can't even give Awasaka time to react. But Awasaka's like, hey, don't, just because you figured it out, don't you think that I can't countermeasure this thing? But and this panel, I remember when I first read this on page 18 and 19, the last couple of pages here, it was kind of like, oh, what's going on here? But what it is that Yuji, he makes it look like he's coming in for the really strong punch. So Awasaka effectively has his power on, right? But then Yuji stops it right before. So if Awasaka is in a state of his power being activated, now a moderately weak hit will be extremely strong. So Yuji kind of figures that out, and he has the skill, which kind of Fushiguro says here at the end, you can pull off refined attacks surprisingly well. So he kind of adjusts that. So he's coming in really strong. Awasaka's got his power on, but then Yuji stops, moderately weak hit, boom, right? And we have Awasaka here, just another punch to the face kind of panel here. And of course, this last panel, I love this kind of banter, these kind of little moments where, you know, Fushiguro's like, you can pull off refined attacks surprisingly well. And Yuji's like, yeah, for real? Thanks, man. Not bad, eh? And then Awasaka's just kind of in the corner here. Yeah, so that is chapter 97. Obviously, right now, the situation is with Yuji and Fushiguro finishing off Awasaka, but right above them is Toji now summoned, and Ino looks like he's getting his ass kicked. And Granny Ogami is up there as well. And Ijichi is somewhere stabbed. Nanami is somewhere as well, looking for kind of a lead onto what's going on. And we're still not really too sure what's going on with Maki and Nobara's group right now as well. Because remember, when Yuji, I kind of pointed this out in one of my previous manga lounges, if you remember. When Yuji yelled out the fact that Gojo is sealed, it didn't explicitly show Maki, Nobara, and Zengin Naobito showing them hearing it. So perhaps they're not really in the loop that Gojo is sealed, and they're just kind of running around right now trying to figure out what's going on, which could spell disaster, right? And they're kind of on a different page right now. So yeah, that was chapter 97. Of course, I implore you to comment if you want to. If you don't want to, if that's too much of a pain, you don't have to, obviously. But thank you very much if you are subscribed. If you want to subscribe, thanks very much. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Really, it's whatever. But it is free. So let me just leave you with that. All right. Yeah, and definitely Jujutsu Kaisen volumes 1 and 2 are out right now in English. You'll have to allow me to do my little kind of advertisement here. You can get them actually, in fact, on Amazon right now. I believe both of them are on sale for $1.50 off, I think. So get both of them and you can save, I think, close to $3. $3, but you know, $3 is $3. If you were thinking about picking it up, maybe now's a good time to do so. And volume 3 is right around the corner. Things are getting exciting. Chapter 100 is right around the corner. If you aren't following me on Twitter, Steady Studios 20, Instagram as well. I have a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen posts on there, if that's a better format for you. And for chapter 100, I'm thinking about doing something, you know, a little bit different as well than Manga Lounge. Kind of maybe talking about my top chapters of the first 100 chapters of Jujutsu Kaisen so far. And I'd like to hear what your guys' opinions are as well. So, yeah. hopefully we'll see you around for that video. If not, we'll see you in next week's Manga Lounge, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Kanpai. Cheers to you. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku. Ooh, that rhymed 3 times. Hold on, let me do that one again. Cheers to you. Drink. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku. There we go.